Maybe you've heard of bioinformatics, big data, data mining, network complexity, or seen words like neural network, complex network, machine learning, data mining. This course is about all of these and then some. Welcome to Analytics and Predictive Modeling, a course on big data. I'm Dr. Jeff Nicely of the Institute for Quantitative Biology at East Tennessee State University, soon to be known as CARDS. So according to Wikipedia, analytics is simply the discovery and communication of meaningful patterns in the data. Predictive models relate performance of a unit in a sample to one or more known attributes or features. Or more to the point, predictive models learn from the data, and predictions are generated from what they learn. Now, analytics and predictive modeling is known by many different names. Currently it's called data sciences, but it's been known for a long time as machine learning in academia, predictive analytics in commercial context in the business world, and more generally, all of these have now been subsumed into what's known as data science, which is roughly just the extraction of knowledge from large sets of data. Data science also includes terms like computational biology, complex systems, data mining, and many others. Now you might ask, aren't all models predictive? Well, traditionally with equations and things like that, we study what are called descriptive models rather than predictive models. Let me show you the difference. Descriptive models begin with assumptions. So we have a law, universal gravitation, constant per capita rate of growth. We derive a model from the assumptions that we make, and we get conclusions from the model. For instance, orbits are elliptical and growth is exponential. These are mathematical derivations from models based on assumptions. Then once we obtain the data, we use it to estimate parameters, and then the projections, like orbits or elliptical, are actually features of the model, not of the actual process. Predictive models, on the other hand, begin with complex data sets that can be very, very large. The human genome, social networks. We ask questions like, what genes are related to a certain kind of cancer, or is a given network small world? We apply algorithms that predict the answers to these questions, and then we assess the results. Now, the big data plays a key role in this process. See, modern data sets tend to be very, very large, extremely complex. They're also very good in general. Descriptive models, however, are not good at extracting information from these very large data sets, something we'll look at actually in the first lecture. Predictive models, on the other hand, are algorithms, and they tend to extract information quickly and effectively and produce results that can be rigorously evaluated. Now, typically when we think about predictive modeling and big data, we think of the 4 V's. Volume, which refers to how large the data is. Velocity, which means how fast it has to be processed or how long it takes to process it. Variety, which is an extremely important concept. Almost anything now is data. Your automobile is data. Your cell phone is data. Videos, images, any number of things can be thought of as data. And then veracity, which is just the uncertainty of data. Now, we're not going to study veracity so much. We're just going to simply reflect that even big data can be bad data. If you collect it poorly, if it's a poorly designed experiment, no matter how large the data is, it's not going to be very good. That's all we're really going to say about veracity. So we're going to focus on the 3 V's, volume, velocity, and variety. And we're going to have what's called the predictive modeling approach. So when we are given a set of large data, a big data set, we tend first to explore it. If the answer is obvious just from looking at the data, there's really no need to go to a lot of effort to create models. Typically then there's some kind of pre-processing. We often don't use the data as is. We often run it through certain kinds of transformations. If some of the factors are very large, maybe we don't want them to be too dominant. Often we normalize the data so that each factor in the data has a mean of 0 and a standard deviation of 1. That's pretty typical. Then we think about data mining. We have this massive, enormous data set, and we want to mine a little bit of valuable information from the rest of the data. Just kind of pull out the nuggets. Then we assess the results. You'll hear me say it a lot, assessing the results. Later on we'll have a module called metrics. Very, very important that we analyze the results we get to see if they have any value. For example, you may have small world networks or social networks. The one I'm showing here is actually relatively small. And you might want to predict things like who's going to hook up to who next, that sort of thing. You could have genomic data where you have genes with all sorts of different levels of expression collected in an experiment where some people have a disease and some people don't. You want to know, infer from this massive data set what genes are playing what role in the progression of some disease. So every single column in this case is a experiment. So we have a huge number of experiments here, and we're only looking at the first 100 rows out of 20,184. So what could we do with this? Well, once we have analyzed this, you see the color map here for the expression, and then you can rank the genes statistically and get some idea of what genes are most important with respect to what phenotypic expression was considered in the experiment. So let's look at maybe something a little easier for you to understand. There are a lot of companies that are successfully applying data science techniques to big data. Twitter, Facebook, Netflix, Pandora, Google, Yahoo, IBM, and of course this idea of 6 degrees of separation. You may have heard of that. For example, Pandora, the internet radio, it assigns 400 attributes to each song, and these 400 attributes are graded by musicians. So musicians prepare a data set where each song is described by 400 different items. The next song that you hear is predicted in real time before the next song has to begin using machine learning algorithms that are applied to 8 years of these 400 attribute user data. So a large volume of data that has to be high velocity because it has to finish the analysis during the song that's currently playing. And a lot of variety here, 400 different attributes. IBM produced the computer Watson that actually beat the Jeopardy legends. And the difficulty here was that Watson had to learn the subtleties of the questions, nuances of the English language, double entendres, colloquialisms, etc. And it was so successful it won convincingly. There's an algorithm called MapReduce, which takes documents and reduces them to individual words. Then how the words imply sentences and sentences imply paragraphs, so on and so forth, determines the structure that implies the meaning of that web page. Yahoo claims that every web page produced by the Yahoo site is produced in this way. And there's a lot of others: image recognition, handwriting recognition, social network interactions, feature selections, protein structure versus function, drug dosages, so many things. And we're going to look at these. But now, let's look at what the actual course is going to be about and how it's going to be structured.